Welcome back to the Compound Podcast. This is episode 231. 231 of the Compound Podcast presented by Parse Rum. I love Parse. You love Parse. Go to Benny's, get your Parse Rum. We're recording the podcast during Game 4 of the World Series. Tom's wearing all of his Yankees gear. He's super stressed. We're going to have some sideways heads for sure because I think Dakota and I are both watching sideways TV.
Zach is at the game. I don't think
Zach is at the game. He's not here because he's at the game. Is anyone upset that Scotty Efros gave Zach tickets and didn't offer us tickets?
Well,
Tom
should be upset.
I did think about that. I was like, hey, Scotty, buddy, hey, none for me. But, I would say I don't know if I could actually handle going to one of these games. I described it to a couple different people because I haven't had a team play for a championship since the Giants in whatever Super Bowl that was. It's been a long drought for me. So I haven't really had it as like a full grown adult. And it's like having a panic, especially a baseball game. It's like having a panic attack in slow motion. Like watching Game 1 was the most stressful experience of my life. And it's like one of the best World Series games ever, but I'll never watch it again because of the ending.
Ian, also, how much more expensive is it to leave tickets in like the World Series than a regular season game? Like, do players have to pay more, obviously, as well?
Yeah, because you pay the face value of the ticket. Taxes.
So it's probably
you pay taxes on the face value of the ticket. So it's much more expensive. And more, I think it's pretty limited at like how many you can get for a World Series game.
We also should mention Scott pretty much got the tickets for Zach's fiance, Fallon, who's a huge Yankees fan. Zach is just more a fan of baseball, but he doesn't really care. He wants the Yankees to win for Scott, but like he doesn't really care who wins that much.
Really, I think Fallon and I should have went. I think we would have had a better time anyway.
That sounds like I'm going to have to bring that up next week when Zach's back and say Tom is trying to call off the marriage early. Crazy move out of you there, Tom. Crazy move.
No, not true. Fallon is on the record saying I'm her favorite member of the podcast. So like, I just
see, but she said I was as well. So like,
no, that's not true. That's.
I guess I was never mentioned. That's tough.
Ian, I think you get enough love from the rest of our fans that I think you can take it that one fan, you're not their favorite.
Can we
also got 61 million reasons to be happy, like
yeah, people forget.
Can we jump into the World Series?
I love when we talk about something Ian doesn't want to talk about and he just doesn't bat an eye and just goes, let's talk World Series.
Just gonna put us on the rails here. I'm just gonna get us onto the rails. I'm gonna backtrack to Game 1, but I want to start with Tommy Edman hitting a right-handed homer. Okay. That was just really pretty. Tom, when Tommy Edman hit that homer, were you thinking to yourself, I shouldn't have dismissed Tommy Edman?
No. This is a narrative that has started in our text chain that's just not true. I don't even think I rolled my eyes, but my eyes have a tendency to roll without me even knowing it. That's been an issue in my life everywhere I've ever worked because I do it unintentionally. It's something I'm working on, not a strength of mine. So I will admit it's possible they rolled, but if they did roll, it was only because even in our text chain, like people sometimes I think like we do bits on the podcast. Ian talks about Tommy Edman more than he talks about any other baseball player. And I'm beginning to think it's because he's Tommy Edman's agent. It's the only explanation for what's going on here. He's double dipping. I don't even think that's allowed. I should call the Players Association and let them know.
Ian, can I give you some stats split-wise for Tommy Edman?
Yes.
This is one where like he might have to consider just being a righty.
He hit right on right.
Did he?
Yes.
Against Canley, to try to take away the change.
With the super
I like
change. That. Yeah. Go ahead though. Sorry.
So hitting right-handed this season, he hit 455, 475 OBP, 927 slug, 1402 OPS. Hitting lefty, he hit 204, 281 OBP, 280 slug, 561 OPS. That's crazy discrepancy.
Yeah, I think if you got a 937 slug, you got to start batting right-handed. Like that's
like
that's
a 1402 OPS.
That's crazy. I bet. What did he have? One homer lefty and like 5 righty.
I should also say
most of the year, so it was pretty small sample, but
a lot more obviously at bats lefty than righty. Like he had 186 lefty, 55 righty. So like a little skewed there, but still like enough that it's like, wait a minute, there might be something here where you should just hit righty all the time.
I'm just like his profile. It's crazy to me. He's obviously not the biggest dude, but he hits the ball hard right-handed, like hard.
Yeah.
But I was very happy to see that my sleeper of the series went out and hit a homer.
Well, I don't. Can you call him a sleeper after he won NLCS MVP?
Nope.
I'd say he's pretty well known at that point.
Nope.
Coming
You
into the
probably can't. You
playoffs.
probably
Yes, you did talk him up before the playoffs, and he's had a great postseason. But I was like, coming into the World Series, like he was coming off the best NLCS we've seen.
I think that's the only point you can make in Ian's favor is he's been on Tommy Edman the whole time.
He
and
has
starting in the
absolutely.
playoffs. That
Absolutely.
he was prior to the NLCS, he was already on the Tommy Edman train.
Thank you.
Correct.
Tom, I will give you credit, though, because you said you were worried about Teoscar, and then Teoscar promptly hit a homer, too. So
I should have been
congrats
more
to you.
worried about Freddie Freeman, it turns out. Freddie Freeman's going to go in my number one enemy list of all time now.
Freddie Free sets a postseason record with 6 straight games with a homer after he hit one tonight in the first inning. 4 straight World Series games, which also it has to be a record because I think he tied. I think there were a handful of guys that had 3 that he tied yesterday, so I think that's a record. Going to be the MVP of the series if the Dodgers can win it. It's pretty remarkable run that Freddie Free's on, especially like they've been talking about. He was not hitting for power with the ankle and everything. Like he was. Oof, I mean, power showed up.
I should clarify my it was about if the Dodgers win the World Series.
Yes.
I got Yankees in 7.
Yeah, we
I
both
said
had Yankees
that,
in 7.
I said, well, I had Yankees in 5 originally. That unfortunately cannot happen unless they win by 50 tonight and tomorrow, and then they would have to forfeit the series. Yankees in 5. My was I still believe in the Yankees to come back. I will never. Tom is a pessimist, even as a diehard Yankees fan. I will never quit on a team. He said no teams ever came back down 3 on the World Series. I said no team has until they do. And someone's going to eventually do it in our lifetimes. Why not the Yankees?
What I said to you technically was that no team had even gotten to game 6. So
well, we're getting to game 7, Tom. Boom. And Cole's throwing games 5 and 7. He doesn't care. He's a savage.
Dakota, are you still like diehard Yankee? Like, are you like?
It comes
does
back.
Does this mean a lot to you right now?
It comes back in the postseason. It really does. I don't want it to. Like I get drawn back into my own ways. Like that Volpe Grand Slam. Again, I know Ian gets mad when I talk about live events on the pod, but this happened already to this moment. The Volpe Grand Slam fired me up a little bit. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but I just, they draw me back in. They're a fun team. And I also, it's just kind of like LA. Like, do I want the Dodgers to win? No. Also, this is a live event, so I don't want to do this, Ian, but Tommy Edman just made an error as we were giving him his flowers. I'm sorry. I won't say any more live things, but he did just make an error as we were giving him his flowers. Yankees in 7.
It's okay. He can play a lot of different positions. His versatility means a lot to this ball club. It was pretty impressive just to watch what Yamamoto did, what Bueller did. I mean, I think the underrated part of this, I know that, Tom, you're going to want to talk about Judge and some of the offensive struggles, but the underrated part of this series for me so far is how good the Dodgers pitching. Like people will pin it on the Yankees struggling, but the Dodgers pitching has been really good. If you look at some of these sequences they're throwing, like it's been pretty impressive.
I will say Zach's not here to defend himself, but he texted in our other group text before game 2 and said, sneaky, I think the Yankees can get to Yamamoto. Like he hasn't been that sharp. He's not that built up. He proceeded to give up, I believe, 1 hit in 6+ innings. And I was like,
yeah, I think
okay,
like 6
you're a little off there. That's okay. He took a shot.
I mean,
but yeah, I agree what you said. The whole thing coming into the postseason in general for why the Dodgers, why people said they didn't think they could win at all was their pitching. And their pitching is obviously they swing it unbelievably, but their pitching's been unreal all postseason. Like,
I mean, probably the biggest question of any team. Like if you were asked like the number one question of the postseason was probably, can the Dodgers pitching come through? And they've answered the call at every turn. And that's probably why they're going to win the World Series. By the time people hear this, they will probably be World Series champions.
No. Well, also the other biggest question coming in, which is funny that these two teams are in the World Series, like of all teams, was can the Yankees get production elsewhere from Judge and Soto? Funny enough, these teams are facing off and like the Dodgers pitching has held the Yankees in check. So it's kind of weird that the two biggest question marks have made it this far.
When you looked at the pitching and the way that they've used the bullpen, like the bullpen usage has been fantastic. Obviously, Yamamoto is not completely built up. Like he didn't even have like a crazy, it was like 85. I think it was still sub 90 pitches when he came out of that game.
I believe it was 88.
Yeah. 6 2/3, and then Buehler gives you 5 innings, no runs, and they weren't afraid to take him out and go right to the pen, and he made himself a lot of money with that performance. He looked really sharp.
And that's the thing with the Dodgers bullpen is, like you said, like Buehler goes 5. They have 6 arms that throw the rest of the game. Like they piece it together of like Gratterall throws 2/3, Vesia throws a third, Hudson 2/3, Banda a third, Brazier an inning, Kopech an inning. It's like you didn't even throw Blake Trinan. You just threw 6 arms to cover the last 4 innings, and you didn't even use your closer. Like that's crazy.
How many starters are they actually carrying right now?
3, just Buehler, Flaherty, and Yamamoto. I think Knack started a little bit in the regular season, but he's been more of a like length guy out of the pen for them in the postseason.
Yeah, so he's the swing guy, and then they have like 3 legitimate starters. That's crazy. It just gives them so many bullpen options, and they're always so good at matching up and using them in the right spots, and it's pretty impressive.
Well, another crazy one today. Obviously, they're going bullpen game for Game 4, but like their starter today, Ben Kasparius, not positive how to say his last name, but he, I heard today it's his 7th career MLB outing. It's like, hey man, I know you're new and you're young, but like you got Game 4 of the World Series against the New York Yankees in New York. Go get him. And
give us a couple innings, man.
And he was like a little shaky command wise, but like 2 innings, 1 run. Realistically, if you're Dave Roberts, you're like, I'll live with that. Like you got through the lineup one time, like good job. Like we're still very much in this ball game.
Yeah, eat 2 innings, and like you said, very much in the game. Keep them in it, and like that's the goal, right? With their long lineup is like if they're in it in the 5th or 6th, and they're matching up their bullpen versus the Yankees bullpen with that lineup, it's like you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I think that's been the difference. Is not to knock the Yankees bullpen, but like we've been praising the Dodgers bullpen. Like the Yankees bullpen just seems to have the same like 3 guys they really trust, and they don't really trust anyone else after that. And it's kind of put them in a tight spot of like yesterday they had to throw Luke Weaver in the 9th inning of a 4-0 ball game. So they're like, we can't go down more than 4.
It's almost like they should have traded for some guys at the trade deadline. I wonder if Brian Cashman considered it,
How many of those guys from the Dodgers bullpen weren't there? Kopech. I don't know who else they went and got. I think it's been a pretty deep bullpen all year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Because I think like Banda and Vesia were there all year. I think Brazier, was he there to start the year, or did they trade for him?
I don't know if they traded for him, but the other Trinan was there.
Gratterall.
The other righty. Gratterall was hurt and came back, but it was the other righty that I'm blanking on. He's back end guy for them. Cutter.
Blusky? No.
Nope. Keep saying names.
Back end guy?
Yeah. He closed for them.
We're gonna have to cut this.
He closed for them before Kopech.
Trinan?
No, the other one.
What's the guy's name? Braddersole or whatever, that guy?
No, stop saying the wrong name.
I don't know who you're asking.
But you don't know the name though.
Well, if I was looking at the roster like you guys are.
I'm looking at Daniel Hudson. Hudson?
No,
there we go.
Him.
Oh, yeah.
No,
we're keeping it all
guy.
in. We're keeping it all in. We're fine.
Him.
Daniel Hudson.
No, this all has to go. This all has to go.
It's not him.
Who are you thinking of? Joe Kelly.
No, not even Joe Kelly.
Ooh, you're making this person up, whoever this is.
I don't think this person exists.
Evan Phillips.
Oh, Evan Phillips. There you go.
Evan Phillips.
All right, reset it.
I think that all has to stay. I think that's good stuff.
Tom, I don't know why you're cutting this. This is a great chop.
You want that in there. That'll stay in there. As the producer,
yes.
I would argue for that to stay out, but okay.
I think that's good. I think it's funny.
Great.
That just goes to show how deep their bullpen is. You have Evan Phillips, Vesia, Hudson, Banda, and Trinan. Those 5. I mean,
Kopech.
They all threw substantial innings. And then that doesn't even include some of these other guys, Knack, and some of these guys that are getting just like leverage innings late. It's nuts.
It has been impressive to see. And that's like the biggest question, obviously, was the starting rotation. It's like, all right, like we just were talking about, like Buehler goes 5 and like perfect. It's all we need. Like we don't need Garrett Cole to go 7 the way he needs to do for the Yankees. Like their starters get him into the 5th and they feel pretty good about the rest of the game.
I mean, in the postseason too, it ends up being so much bullpen usage because guys don't trust the star. Like as soon as the star gets in trouble, you don't see guys in the postseason throw 110 pitches anymore. Like you don't. Like even Cole had. I was going
to say Cole in Game 1 was I think under 90 pitches when they pulled him, and we talked about it in our text at the time. Zach was also not a fan of it. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I understood the logic of if you wanted him to pitch 3 times in the series, maybe it made sense. Obviously, he's not pitching game 4, so it doesn't look like they're going to do that. So uh, I would have loved to have seen them get an extra inning out of Cole because now we know everything that else that I mean, it's easy, obviously, to say that in hindsight, but in the moment, even I was pushing. I would have liked to have seen Cole because they sent him out for that inning. He gives up a single, and now you take him out. Like, what's the point of sending him out there if you're going to pull him out with a single? Let the reliever come in with a clean inning then.
The only thing I'll push back on that is I'm okay with going batter by batter, just because it's like, hey, if he can go 1, 2, 3, perfect. But like if he can't, we'll have someone ready to go. That's
I
the
just
only
feel like
thing
if you're pulling him on a single, like I get if like a guy gets in scoring position, okay, like we want to, whatever, we need to change the look up. But it just feels like to me, like if that's your ace and that's the guy that you're paying all that money to, if he gives up a single and you're going to pull him, I just wouldn't send him out there at that point. Or honestly, I would rather just let him keep going and see what happens. But
yeah.
Playoff baseball is coming down the final stretch. Get in on all the playoff action at the DraftKings Sportsbook. From same-game parlays to live betting to odds boosts and so much more. DraftKings has you covered until a champ is crowned. Right now, all new customers who bet just $5 instantly will get $200 in bonus bets. And that's when you use code COMPOUND. Stay into the action and use your $200 in bonus bets to bet anytime homers on DraftKings. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code COMPOUND and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code COMPOUND only at the DraftKings Sportsbook.
I just know I miss the days. I miss the days of the Madison Bumgarners, of the guy that's going to throw games 1, 4, and 7 and just be an animal out there every time he goes out.
Well, I was looking at some Clayton Kershaw numbers just to compare them. I think there's an interesting parallel with Judge, where obviously Clayton Kershaw's not pitching in these playoffs. He's hurt. There's a good chance we might never see him as Dodger again. It seems like they don't really have room for him in the rotation. He might go somewhere else. This would be a very odd way to end his tenure as like a winner of a World Series which he didn't play in. And obviously he's had a ton of postseason struggles, everyone that's well documented. But if you go look at the numbers, he's also had a lot of postseason success. He's had some unbelievable outings in the postseason. They've been overshadowed, obviously, by the fact that he's had all the struggles. But even just looking at his regular season numbers, he threw over 200 innings like 5 straight years in the mid 2010s. I don't think we'll ever see a starting pitcher ever do that ever again. Like by this era, he's like Sandy Koufax. And so the fact that he's had all the postseason struggles is kind of incredible. Judge the same way. You go look at the numbers, they're not as bad as you would think, maybe by the eye test, but like we can if we want to do this now. I butter knifed out some numbers.
Hang on. Garrett Cole got taken out after Teoscar Hernandez, and Max Muncy was coming up. The interesting play is that they went to Clay Holmes, which I'm not sure if he's a reverse splits guy, but like bringing him in to face a lefty is kind of a strange move.
I mean, yeah, it's a ground ball. It's a heavy ground ball.
Yeah,
right?
Fair.
And he's been kind of that fireman role. Yeah, he's been in that fireman role as well. So Judge in his first 16 playoff games. So this is 2017 and 2018, before the Astros series in 2018. First 16 games, he hits 267, 380 with a 1.064, 7 homers, 15 runs batted in. That's in his first 16 games. Since then, he has played now in 40 playoff games. And the numbers are not very good, obviously. 169 average, a 272 on base, a 331 slug, and an OPS of 603. He's got 8 homers, 16 runs batted in 40 games, and he has 57 strikeouts in those 40 games. And it's 154 at bats, 181 plate appearances. It's not an insignificant sample size at this point. And obviously, Aaron Judge has been one of the greatest right-handed hitters in baseball history in the regular season. And it's unfortunate that his legacy is maybe going to be changed by this playoffs. This feels like the playoffs where it really is changed. But when you put the C on your chest in New York and you play for the Yankees and you get that contract, people expect you to show up and play, and he hasn't done that. And even if you want to break down those numbers even a little bit further, he hit in 12 games against Cleveland since 2020, he's got 5 homers. He's got 2 against everyone else. So he's really kind of taking advantage of Cleveland. He's been good against the the Guardians. But everyone else, he's got 2 homers in 17 games against everyone else since 2020. It's just not good enough.
I think the concerning part is those strikeouts too. Like he's striking out at an alarming rate right now to where like Ian, you can probably speak on it more. Like he's just got to be pressing a little bit of like wants to be the guy, wants to step up and do what people like expect from him. And he's probably just kind of chasing that like big hit to get back into his groove.
Yeah, I think it's when you're going through it a little bit, like the hardest thing. Obviously, Aaron Judge is a pro's pro and best in the world, but I don't think it matters who you are when you're going through it. Like you want to hit that one ball hard to kind of click you back in. And what he's so good at during the regular season or all the time is taking his walks. Like he gets on base a ton and he takes his walks. He's got a 400 plus on base percentage. And Soto's continued to do that in front of him. And, if some of those, because there's some of those that are like 3-2 sliders out of the zone, if he's taking some of those pitches and walking, like I think that's a really good sign for him. And that's just the thing that I've seen that looks a little different is that he's just not, they're really tough sequences. They're really tough sequences guys are throwing him, but he isn't walking. And the one thing I'll say against your point, Tom, is like this dude still has 7 more years with the Yankees on his deal. Legacy, he's gonna have a lot more playoff games. He'll have a lot more playoff series. There's gonna be a point that he goes to a whole playoffs and it's like 500. Legacy. I wouldn't define his legacy based on this one, but it is. He definitely wishes he could help the team more. I mean, that's for sure.
I think your point about the walks is a really good one. What I've noticed with Judge, and obviously this is an amateur opinion compared to a guy who's an MLB All-Star, but on those, you talked about those sliders and taking the walks, those low pitches, when he's able to lay off the low pitches, I feel like, and let those sliders go by, that's when he has his most success. When he looks for the ball up, that's where he's always been his best. And he's continuing to chase outside the zone. And I asked you guys this a couple nights ago, and Zach said he did feel like he was pressing a little bit. Obviously, that's just one person's opinion. But from my perspective, it does look like he is pressing a little bit. He really obviously wants it to happen. And it's a really difficult situation. I genuinely have a lot of empathy for him because I understand how valuable he's been to this franchise. I saw David Ortiz say this on the Fox pregame show before game 1, and it's true. They wouldn't be here without him. And that's 100% true. The Yankees are not in the World Series without Aaron Judge. But I think what was really frustrating was he's been disappointing, obviously, in the playoffs, striking out at a 50% rate. But he's had a couple moments in this World Series where one hit could have changed the whole narrative. And and unfortunately, it's the weirdest part about baseball, and you guys can attest to this, that it's a sport where we talk about sample size, we talk about time, and you always have time. The playoffs is the inverse of that. Yeah, sometimes your entire season is going to be defined by one at bat. For the Yankees, it might be that Nestor Cortez, Freddie Freeman at bat. That might define the entire season. And it's unfair that happens, but that's what happens in the baseball playoffs. And he looks like he's lost right now. And that's what's frustrating.
I think it's promising that Boone said it today, actually, in the in-game interview, like he walked his last at bat of yesterday's game, walked his first at bat today, got hit in his second bat, a little different, but like seeing him take those walks, I think if anything is like a positive sign of like, all right, he's tracking a little better. He's not pressing and like, I have to swing. I have to be the guy hits a home run. Like if I can get on base, I have Jazz Chisholm behind me. I have Giancarlo Stanton, who's been our best hitter behind me. Like he's letting the other guys have a chance with someone on to do what needs to be done. Ian, I have a question for you. How often, like when you are in a slump, does it feel like one good at bat is like, okay, I'm back? Like, does it work like that to where it's like, oh, I have one good at bat and like, I feel like I can hit again, or is it kind of like an overtime thing?
I think it kind of depends. Like you can click one ball right, and it's not always a homer. Sometimes it's a double in the gap or like a backside single, and you can hit that one ball and be like, okay, like that felt really good. Or sometimes it's a walk. Sometimes it's laying off, like seeing it really well and laying off a pitch and be like, all right, I feel locked in. The way that Soto was talking about that at bat, that big homer that he hit in the CS, and he was talking about, is that the CS against the Guardians,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
When he was talking about that at bat where he was like, this guy can't beat me, just that positive self-talk. Like sometimes you got to get back to that place. And it's just like what gets you back. Sometimes it's a long at bat where you see a bunch of pitches and walk, or sometimes it's a single or a double. And then once you're back in that frame of mind where that guy can't beat you, you're a warrior in there. But sometimes it's the opposite. And I will say, I just want to say this about where Judge is hitting in the lineup. They've had a couple different guys hit behind him in that 4 hole. Like Soto has the benefit of Glaber has the benefit of Soto and Judge protecting him. Soto has the benefit of Judge protecting Soto. He still does a good job of taking his walks. He gets deep and counts. Guys don't want to get beat by Soto, but you know, they also don't want to put a bunch of guys on base in front of Judge. If Wells or Stanton or Jazz is hitting behind Judge, like those guys aren't Aaron Judge. And so he is getting these unbelievable sequences because guys aren't afraid to walk him. And that I don't know, Dakota, you can speak to this, but like it's pretty empowering for the pitcher when you're like, I don't care if I walk you or strike you out. I'm making my best pitch.
Absolutely. It's a different feeling, like you said, when it's like, all right, it's 3-2 to Aaron Judge. Like, am I really going to challenge him with a heater over the heart of the plate, or am I going to try to get him to chase a slider off the plate and then take my chances with Giancarlo Stanton, Jazz Chisholm, whoever's hitting behind him? And I feel like that's what's going to happen 99% of the time. Is like 3-0, 3-1, 2-1. Like, you're not all of a sudden just grooving Aaron Judge a hittable pitch. You're like, we're still going to try to make him chase here because we're not going to give him something he can do damage with. Like, worst case, you walk him, and then it's like, let's see if we can get the next guy. And that's what you're saying. Like, for Judge, he's not seeing any like hittable pitches unless like they just absolutely miss their spot. So he's going to have to try to get scraps to like find a ball that he can hit and drive. And it just hasn't really been happening. I think the concerning part of the postseason is that even when he's gotten a couple mistakes, he's like just missed them. And that's where he's a little off of like in the regular season, he was hitting those for home runs.
I can remember two backup sliders. There was one that he hit last night off the end of the bat. It's a really good trajectory. And then there was one in a big moment in like game 1 or 2 late where there was a hanging slider and he popped it up shortstop or left field. Like hit it hard, just missed it, like straight up in the air. And like those are the ones where you're like, whew. Like if he clips one of those, like, maybe that gets him back into that spot.
And that's to Tom's point of like Stanton this postseason, he hasn't missed like whatever. Like he had a good regular season, but like compared to his regular season, like if they've made a mistake to Stanton, it's gone over the fence. Like,
been hit very hard.
Stanton is owed apologies by pretty much the entire Yankee fan base. Like, it's unfortunate. Obviously, does not seem like they're going to win the World Series, but because I think that really would have changed his legacy forever as a Yankee. But this postseason should cement him as like, go look at his playoff numbers. He's only played in the playoffs of the Yankees. They're incredible. He's, got 17 homers in like 40 games. He's hitting, he's done everything you can ask out of his role. It's really been everyone else around them. We talked about what they could get beyond Soto and Judge. Judge has been kind of a non-factor. Stanton's kind of helped and offset some of that, but they're not really getting a lot from anybody else right now. And I'm surprised. One of the things that I think I'm frustrated with Aaron Boone, and Verdugo did hit the 2-run home run last night late. He's made some good defensive plays, but I was surprised we haven't seen any of Jason Dominguez. There's some weird thing going on there. They didn't want to play him in the regular season. For whatever reason, they don't want to play him in the playoffs. I would have loved to have seen him get, 50 games at the end of the regular season just to see what he had, and maybe he could have been a contributor in this playoffs because we know what Alex Verdugo is. And that's no disrespect to Alex Verdugo, but he's the 9-hitter on the New York Yankees. Dominguez's ceiling is much higher. And it's interesting that for whatever reason, he's on the roster. He replaced Duke Ellis, who was that kind of designated pinch runner, but they haven't used him really at all in any situation that would matter.
I don't know hitting nearly as well, obviously, as our other hosts here, but I feel like Verdugo's taken some really good at bats. Like I've enjoyed watching Verdugo's at bats this World Series. I feel like he has played really well. I was kind of hoping to see him moved up in the order. Honestly, I was like, this guy is up there, like grinding out at bats and like finding a way to get good bat on the ball. Like I feel like he's given you some very solid at bats, and like we talked about coming in the postseason, like we're Judge and Soto going to get help. I think they kind of have, honestly. Like Glaber's hitting 255, Volpe's hitting 256, Rizzo's hitting 320. I think the only difference is those guys aren't really driving in runs. They're just like getting on base. And that's where the lack of like power from Judge just kind of hurt the team. But I feel like overall, like they've gotten help a little bit.
Yeah, they just haven't had slug as a group. And like
Mhm.
Riz's at bats have been fantastic, like vintage Riz grinder ABs. I think you're right. I think Verdugo's at bats have been good. He's played great left field defense. And like that's the thing with starting a young player in the World Series. Like he during the regular season, the left field defense was probably a little scary for a manager. And like he's a young player, and like there's young player mistakes. And when you put them on the biggest stage against the best team in baseball, it's like do you really want to lose a game because that dude was running around in left field and missed the ball? Or like, and it's like, is that how you want his young career to start? Like, I don't know.
What's league average slug?
Probably like 380,
Okay. Just because I was
maybe
looking at their
400,
teams,
maybe.
their like lineup slug, and like Stanton 714, Soto 622, but like next best is Glaber at 370, and everyone else is like low 300s to high 200s. So like you said, it's really just two guys doing the bulk of the work slugging, and then it's kind of just grinding it out from there, trying to get on base.
Yeah, league average is 390.
Yeah. So like they have two guys obviously slugging like crazy, but then the rest of the order has kind of just been like a single here or there and not much else.
You obviously were batting in the middle of the order last year when you guys had that difficult stretch to end the year. What's it like being, I'm just trying to imagine what's going on in Aaron Judge's mind right now as he's the number 3 hitter on the Yankees, as we've talked about, he's had plenty of opportunities to come up in big spots, and obviously nobody wants to come through more than him. Like, what do you think mentally is going on right now? What is he trying to, like, if you were him, what would you be doing? What would you be feeling in these moments?
I mean, yeah, I think the hardest thing you're always fighting is that searching feeling. Like when you're not going good and you really want to perform, like you start searching for things, whether that's a swing feel or a certain pitch, um, or getting anxious, and like swinging a lot, like trying to jump the first pitch, like that. Those are the things that you are trying to avoid doing, I guess. And it's really easy, especially when you don't have time. It's as pressure packed as this is to say, well, maybe I need to change the feeling in my hands. And you wouldn't see it on TV. Like you're not going to see him like come with a new stance, but he might feel like his hands are farther out or closer or higher or lower, or his move is starting sooner. Like all that stuff to the naked eye, you would never know, because when you change something, the feel versus real, you can move your hands an inch and it might feel like they're above your head now. And so just those little things, he has a really good routine. He's super disciplined in like what he does and kind of the principles that he hits by. I mean, I'd be shocked if I'm sure that he's thinking more mental than physical right now. He's just trying to see the ball early. And I think you could see in the last couple of at bats just how focused he's been on staying in. And he said it in a couple of interviews, like he's been swinging too many balls.
Is that one where for you at least personally, like would you lean on like a hitting coach, like whether it be your own hitting coach or your personal hitting coach, like when, like you said, feel versus real of like, oh, like my hands are way away from my body. And then like your hitting coach looks like the video and you're like, no, like they're in the exact same spot they've always been. Like this is actually the issue or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think I would try really hard to, especially at this point in the season, I would try really hard. Sometimes you just feel so backwards, you feel like you're holding the bat wrong, but like
Hmm.
I would try really hard to just focus on like mental stuff and like competing, trying to really like narrow in on like a certain spot. If you're chasing pitches, like I'm just gonna get the ball close to me, and like that, like if you're chasing away, for example, so I'm thinking about like the sliders away, it's a little different as a switch hitter because you've never seen that slider. But like if I was chasing if they were throwing me a bunch of change ups and I was chasing change ups off, I would just be like, I have to get it close to me. I'm gonna see the ball on the inside corner, and anything that starts in that line, I'm gonna fire at. And if it's away and he throws 3 fastballs away, like I just have to be okay with that. And so like setting those little goals, and I think those little like objectives for yourself during an at bat is like one way that try to just bust out of something where you then that pitch does show up and you hit something hard and you're like, okay, now I can be a hitter again.
How much though are you, like, at this point in the season, willing to change stuff? Like, are you like, I've
That's
been
what
like,
well, that's why you try to be so like you try to be so like mindset oriented over physical, You never really want to change like look at Aaron Judge's career numbers. Like that man should never change anything physical. He's unbelievable. Like his swing physically, what he does, like he's strong, he hits the ball hard, he hits the ball in the air. Like everything is perfect. So when stuff gets out of whack, like it very rarely is a physical thing. It's usually mental thing that starts to creep, and then I feel wrong, but it's because I haven't gotten hits instead of like having to go compete and like try to zero in on one spot, one location. It's all those things. It's such a game of failure, and like to stay confident the whole way through, it's like so hard.
Zach, who not like he's the end all be all, but like he is very knowledgeable about hitting. And like you guys asked him, like, does anything look different in his swing? He's like, honestly, like it just looks like he's pressing. Like he's just chasing pitches he didn't chase in the regular season. He's trying to get that big hit, but like there's no huge like, oh, his swing looks terrible. Like everything, he's still very good. He's still Aaron Judge. He just
Yeah.
needs to make better pitch selection.
Yeah, and I haven't broken it down at all. And I texted in our group. I was like, so, okay, he's starting late because you just like sometimes when you get a little defensive and you get late because you're trying not to swing it the balls away, and so you just try to see the ball a hair longer. You start a little bit later, and generally that actually does lead to like bad swing decisions because you get rushed, which is kind of counterintuitive. But there's a good one today. One of the announcers, Jazz, swung through a first pitch fastball, kind of like middle up in the zone, 96, 97, with like good ride, good life up in the zone, and he swung through it. When you're late on a fastball, you're going to be under it. So the fastball's coming. Fastball's coming. Your swing plane is coming from here. You have to get the ball farther out front to match it. So he's late. So he's under it. And he's trying to catch up. So it looks like he's swinging pretty hard. And the announcer was like, that's him swinging for the fences. I'm like, no. He's just late. He's just late. He's got beat by that. He's not trying to hit a 500-foot homer. And that's why he missed.
Are you saying MLB broadcasters sometimes don't know what they're talking about? That's crazy. That doesn't sound like the games that I've been watching.
I think my biggest announcer pet peeve is like, that's what he does. He just swings for the fences. He just doesn't know how to shorten it up. Like,
wouldn't you say that like it's rare, if ever, that it's in your head like, oh, I'm hitting a homer on this pitch. Like this is my swing. Like this is my homer swing. I'm not taking a base hit swing here.
yeah, like you might be trying to hit a double through the right center wall, and like you might get a pitch and like just miss and be like, oof, should have hit a homer there. But like you're trying to hit doubles through the gaps. You're trying to hit right back up the middle. Like I'm not
trying to hit it hard.
Pull a homer off the foul pole.
No.
What?
And the high fastball is just the hardest pitch to lay off of and like time up
and
in
square
baseball.
Up. Yeah.
I think the hard part as a broadcaster is you see the results, but you don't necessarily understand the process of how that result happened. That was something I tried to when I was like the biggest resource you have when you're with a team is like go talk to the pitching coach, go talk to the hitting coach, like see what guys are doing, see what guys are throwing, like try to learn that stuff. Because as you said, you can fall into the trap of that was a hard swing, that was a big swing. Oh, that guy's swinging for the fences, and it's as you said, like 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, that's not the case. And there's actually like something else much deeper going on, but it's hard to translate that into a one sentence comment on a broadcast. So people just fall back on, oh, he's swinging for the fences. Because how many times have we all heard that? We've heard that 500 times in our lives. So broadcasters think, oh, that's a good thing to say. I've heard that before.
That's a good
But it's not new or interesting or actually what's going on. It's just something to say that fills the air.
Ian, I have a question for you. But first, do you know what would help them hit the high fastball?
Bruce Bolts.
Batting gloves.
Yeah. Bruce Bolts would help them hit the high heater. If you get a pair of Bruce Bolts at brucebolt.us, don't be afraid. brucebolt.us. You need to hit the high heater. You need to get some of your work in. Maybe you have fall ball. Maybe it's time to start.
You know who on the Yankees who's a Bruce Bolt guy?
Verdugo.
Yeah, your boy. You're just talking him up. Alex Verdugo having some good ABs.
Verdugo, Bruce Bolt guy, having deep ABs in the World Series. There's a couple Bruce Bolt. I think, is Kike rocking Bruce Bolts? I think there's a couple guys rocking
not sure.
Bruce Bolts.
I do know you'd kill to get Tommy Edman in some Bruce Bolts. I'll tell you that much. What you would pay to get that man in some Bruce Bolts.
I think Ian's probably already sent him just Bruce Bolts without even asking.
I'm gonna make him a custom. I'm gonna make him a custom design. Tommy Edman, Team Bruce Bolt.
Ian's batting gloves next year are just going to be Tommy Edman's face all over his batting gloves.
BruceBolt.us for all your training needs this offseason. Shorts, t-shirts, workout shirts, pants,
arm
sleeves, batting gloves, anything you need. BruceBolt.us. Go ahead, Dakota. You had something.
I was just going to ask, I like Tom's point. Like, how often do you as a hitter like pick the brain of like a pitching coach or a pitcher, even like John Lester when he's on your team, John Lackey, guys like that, Kyle Hendricks, like really smart vets about how they attack certain guys and like how they like to strategize going up against hitters?
We would talk about it a lot on the plane, especially with like Lester, like about what they're trying to do or certain guys or how they attack certain guys or, why. It was pretty interesting. Like John, the point that he was in his career too, like in all the big postseason games. I think we've talked about this before, but like saving pitches for certain at bats, like all that stuff was really interesting. But for me personally, like I would talk to him about, his stuff and the way he liked to attack hitters and stuff. But the one thing for myself during my career was talking to pitching coaches and like occasionally asking, Tommy Hotovy and I have been together a long time now, and occasionally asking pitching coaches or a bullpen coach, like, or like game planning guy, like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what it looks like. Like, if you look at my numbers right now, how would you attack me? I feel like I'm getting a lot of change ups. Like, why is that? If you looked at me, would you throw me a bunch of change ups? Like, why would that guy throw me that pitch in this situation? Those are kind of the guys that are doing all the game planning every single day. That is pretty interesting to get their take on it.
That's where it's nice, like working both ways of like a pitcher also being like, hey, like whatever your shortstop is like, hey man, like I can see that slider coming from a mile away when you're throwing it. Like we need to find a better way to disguise that. Another interesting point you made of like Lester saving pitches for later in the game. I feel like that's kind of a lost art in baseball. Like nowadays it's like, hey, your best pitch, we want you to throw it right away and we want you to throw it all the time. Like Lester and those guys back in the day, I say back in the day, like he's 50 years old, would save like 2 pitches and be like, first time through the order, I'm not going to throw my cutter. And then it's like, all right, we're in the third, fourth inning. Here comes the cutter. And then like guys are just like, we haven't seen this all game. This is like a whole new pitcher.
You say like pitching hasn't changed that much, but is anything in sports changed more than pitching in the last like 25 years? I mean, it's like, as I said, like Clayton Kershaw went out there and was throwing 230 innings pretty consistently for, 4 or 5 years there. Well, I legitimately don't know if we'll ever see another pitcher throw 232 innings in a season. Like maybe, but like the odds of a guy doing that, unless something dramatically changes, all the numbers, all the analytics point to shorter outings for pitchers, less time the hitters see them. And as you said, Dakota, like analytically, it makes more sense to throw your best pitch as often as you can, even if as we're talking about, like, does it make more sense if maybe that's why guys are not having as much success the third time around the orders, whereas back in the day, John Lester used to hold on to that cutter, say, I throw you, my 2 best pitches, the first 3 at bats. Now the 4th at bat, oh, you didn't know about the cutter. It's 3 straight cutters that you haven't seen. That's going to completely throw you off. That doesn't really happen anymore.
He was so good at talking about like, the ability to command pitches, but like if you're facing a 3 or 4 hitter in that lineup, it's big bopper, you're facing him in the first inning with 2 outs and you got him to a 1-2 count, you have a bunch of ways to get that guy out or finish him. Like, do you really need to throw the dotted backdoor cutter? And like, yeah, you could strike him out, but what if you save that backdoor cutter so he hasn't seen it? And so you can go cutter in off, you can go curveball under, you can go fastball up. You can try to use something else to get him out in that situation. And then let's say the second time through, third time through, he comes up with a runner on second, it's tie game, runner on second, 2 outs. It's like, okay, now I got him to the spot where I can use that backdoor cutter. He hasn't seen it all game and freeze him up, instead of if you use it in that first at bat, then in that third at bat, you go back to it. He's thinking about it. He knows it's there. It's just it's a game within a game. And I think you're right that it's not as common today to do that and save that. Like, I want to save that one pitch just in case we need it later.
That's where the data comes in of like the data tells us like, hey, you throw a fastball with 20 inches of vert at 95 and you throw a sweeper with 18 horizontal, like throw those 2 as much as humanly possible. Like, I don't even care if you throw a third pitch. Just throw those every other pitch and we're in a good spot.
It's where game calling has completely changed, where it used to be much more of an art and much more of like a feel thing. And now it's so much of a science of, this is the exact breakdown that our advanced scout has given us of how to attack this hitter. We're going to follow that game plan to a T, and no matter what we do.
I think one of the parts of the reason why it was lost because you had all those division games and guys played longer careers and you face guys so many more times. So like you knew the pitchers more. So there's so many guys that you're facing what feels like for the first time, or you've only seen that guy 2 or 3 times in your career. And I felt it more with like facing like a Corbin Burns or a Woodruff or like dudes that you face a lot in your division, a Wainwright, like guys like that, where they know you, you know them, and so you'll get a pitch from them and be like, you don't throw that very often. You just use that today. That's a 1% pitch, friend. Like I know you don't use that a lot, or like you're looking for that one pitch that you think he's going to throw, and he saves it until like a big at bat later in the game. There is still a little bit of it, but it is more rare.
That's like those big curveballs of like people just drop in big curveballs and they're like, there's no way they're sitting on this. I can drop this in and steal a strike. And hitters are like, come on, you can't do that to me.
Dude, Wainwright used to do that all the time. And I think Schwarber had maybe struggled with him. I'm trying to remember what year this was. Maybe been 18. And finally, he sat on it and Wainwright threw it. It was like an 0-0. It was like, here it comes. And Schwarber hit it 500 feet. And it was like, yeah, he was like come back in the dugout, like, yeah, I knew he was gonna throw it. I finally sat on it. It was like one of those moments. Like that's what makes like the game so cool. Is like when you finally do that and sit on one, and that's the cat and mouse. And there isn't quite as much cat and mouse in 97 at your can't not a lot of cat and mouse 97 at your chest.
But that's where, like you said, like it's almost impossible to sit on like the 4% pitch of like if you go up there and it's like, hey, this guy has a four-seam changeup and sweeper, but he throws the sweeper to lefties 4% of the time. He throws you 2 straight sweepers, and you're like, how am I supposed to be ready for that? Like
Yes.
he throws the other two 96% of the time. The math tells me to sit on the other two and never even look for this.
Yep.
The most underrated pitch in baseball, one of my favorite guys is the kid El Duque. Orlando Hernandez would break out the eephus once in a while.
Yeah.
And I remember back in the old 2K baseball video games, they had that in there. And that was my favorite pitch to throw. Cause like if you throw it like once once every 3 innings, how can you possibly know it's coming? His problem was he would love to double up on it. Like I remember he doubled up on it against A-Rod, and then A-Rod hit the second one like to the Bronx County Courthouse at the stadium. So that didn't work. But if you do it once in a while, I think it's the most underrated pitch in baseball because how can you ever see it coming?
Ian, last live update that we'll give while recording. Mookie Betts just struck out on a high fastball. You think he was trying to hit a home run?
I think he was. I think that's what
he was swinging out of his shoes.
Yep, he was trying to tie the game in a 2-2 count with 2 outs, and that's why
97 at his letters.
Yeah,
up and in
with ride. Yeah, I just want to make one last point about playoff baseball that I think is very underrated because talk about well-rounded hitters and coming through situationally. Home runs win in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you score runs off great pitching, off leverage arms, because you only see leverage arms. You only see the top 3 stars in every team, and you only see the leverage bullpen arms. You win by hitting homers because, as you can see in this series, like even watching this game it's a 6-4 game, like getting guys on first and second or getting guys on second base with 2 outs, like it's very, very hard to score against these leverage arms. Like you have to be able to slug to win in the playoffs.
I thought you made a really good point that like when you started going through the Yankee offense, I was like, you're actually right. Like I've been very frustrated. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of production, but if you go through like guy by guy, they're actually like they're having decent at bats. They're getting on base a decent clip, but it's been the slug, as we talked about, that isn't there. And ultimately, like the Yankees before that Verdugo home run last night had 5 runs through 3 World Series games. Like you're just never going to win. That's not how this team is meant to play. They're not meant to win 2-1 games.
And that's like to Ian's point of like against these leverage arms, it's very rare you're going to get like single, double, single. It's like you're just not going to get like 4 hits in an inning. Like you'll get that big blast of like this guy got a walk, next guy hit a home run because he hit the one pitch the guy missed his spot on. Like you're not going to manufacture runs as easily. It's more like, hey, we need one big blast out of somebody.
You might get a single and a home run, but as you said, the odds of stringing together 4 hits in an inning against a guy, it's really hard to do that in the playoffs. And the other thing is like it's easy ideally to do that, but it's also this is the most high pressure situations, and not only are you facing the best pitchers, but you're also facing the the Dodgers. How many times have the Yankees seen these guys? You're seeing guys for maybe the first time in the most high pressure situation, and it's like, let's try to string 3 singles together. Good luck.
It's a little colder. The ball's not quite flying as far. Like doubles are hard to come by. It's the whole thing. I saw something about what percentage of runs the Dodgers have scored off the homer. I don't remember it, so I'm not going to quote it. I gave our research team the night off, or else I would ask them. But
it's got to be over 50%.
If you look at the playoff numbers of like percentage of runs scored on home runs, it's a large percentage. I would argue that it's over 50%. And in the regular season, it's just not that way. But in the postseason, like you have to hit homers to score, and that when you're constructing a team, like that's why it's not the only reason, but like teams like the Guardians, like they play great baseball, and then they get to the playoffs, and like you have got a couple boppers in the middle of that lineup, but like the Dodgers are so good and competitive because 1 through 9, a homer is possible, and definitely like 1 through Will Smith's hitting the 8 hole. So like, I mean, it's everywhere in
the 9 hole.
Best player ever. Every hitter in that lineup can hit a homer like that. It's a good recipe for runs.
I can't wait till we get Tommy Edman and some Bruce Bolts.
Zach and Ian should be so happy. Their 2 favorite players are on this team. Zach's favorite player is Kike, and Ian's favorite player is Tommy Edman. The Dodgers are their team.
I just don't want people to forget that my favorite player is Mike Trout, and I know people forgot about Mike Trout, but shout out to Mike Trout because he's still my favorite player.
I need Zach to somehow go down and like get a picture with Kike Hernandez, or like get something signed by Kike. Just be like, I'm your biggest fan, man.
They win, and Zach's in the clubhouse like popping champagne with Kike.
That'd be cool. That'd be pretty cool.
But Yanks in 7. Yanks in 7.
They literally just put the numbers on the screen. 24 times the team's gone up 3-0. 21 times it's ended in a sweep. Only 3 times the team even got into game 5. So if the Yankees win this, it would be impressive just to even get to game 5.
Those are World Series numbers?
7. We're getting to 7.
I saw this TikTok last week of Kevin Millar in the famous 04 series.
Yeah.
And it was before each game going up to like the hitting coach being like, don't let us get hot. Like, you don't want us to win game 4. And then like he kept doing it before every game. And it is like I started on my drive home today. I was listening to the game on the radio, and I did go like, they win tonight. You got Cole tomorrow. Now you go back to LA. You just need to win game 6. Anything could happen in game 7. That's Millar keeps going. Anything could happen in game 7. You don't want us to get to a game 7. So people will know they're in the future. We're recording this right now. It's possible. I have hope a little bit.
The MLB sees these TV ratings and they're like, all right, they call the umps and they're like, all right, listen, we're going to need a few more. We're going to need to go back to LA. We've got to get back to LA. We're doing incredible numbers. Please let the Yankees win a couple.
Hey, I know you guys are big Yankees fans around here, but if you go to Netflix, you just go over to Netflix.
Not in a million years. Not in a million years.
You watch that Red Sox doc about the 04 comeback. It might give you just a little bit of motivation about what's possible to come back from 3-0.
That was one of my favorite Dakota moments as of late, when you texted that, and me and Dakota were both just so immediately so angry, being like, we will never watch that. Because I completely agree. Like, I've watched every 30 for 30 except for the one about the Red Sox comeback. I'll never watch it. I'm good.
I've had people in the office ask me that, and I'm like, I'll never even watch Fever Pitch. Like, what are you, insane? No chance. I was like, I want nothing to do with that story. I hate the Red Sox. I will always hate the Red Sox. That's where my Yankee love is still there. I will always despise the Red Sox.
Clip this for when Dakota gets hired by the Red Sox.
Yes.
And then I will flip.
For all of the listeners out there and the viewers, the Netflix doc is fantastic.
Terrible.
I think it's called Comeback. It's fantastic, and you should give it a watch. Should we give the people the screen times?
I just don't know why you're fluffing the Red Sox. Like, what is
it's? Listen, okay. 2 of my bosses, one former boss, Theo Epstein, who drafted me, and the current boss, Jed Hoyer. They were running that team. It's a pretty cool story about them early in their careers. Good friend Kevin Millar. Tom, fix your phone.
I gotta fix it. It says 8 seconds, which I don't think is accurate.
I don't think that's right.
What's Sloan the leading manufacturer in, Ian?
Sloan is the world's leading manufacturer of commercial plumbing systems. The company is at the forefront of the green building movement and provides smart, sustainable, and hygienic restroom solutions by manufacturing water-efficient products, including flush meters, faucet, sink systems, soap dispensers, and fixtures for commercial, industrial, and institutional markets worldwide. To learn more, visit sloan.com.
5 hours, 6 minutes. Not a good day.
I had a bad day too. I had a bad day.
It's going to be like 3:40.
No, I would be shocked. I had a bad day. Where's my
One thing I'll say before you say your time.
Yeah.
Even if the Dodgers lose this game, Logan Knack throwing innings 4 through like 7 right now, and possibly even throwing the 8th, like what that does for your bullpen to set you up for the next 3 days of having all those arms get an extra day, like your leverage guys, huge. Like that
Huge
can't
for the
go
series.
overstated, like going into tomorrow's game if the Yankees close out this win and like everything goes to plan.
I mean,
But
it's
like,
even
that's
it's
huge.
it's huge in the regular season. People don't appreciate that. Like when you have something like that in the regular season, reliever goes out there, throws 3-4 innings. Like those moments are big. 425 for me. That's a 1v1 W.
Just the two of us.
Feels
Hey, but
really
8
good.
seconds. I think I won. 8 seconds could not be beat.
Yeah.
We know that's not real because you've been texting us more than 8 seconds.
Yeah. And probably just watching videos of all of the how much the Yankees fans are upset with the Yankees.
Spent a lot of time butter knifing Aaron Judge playoff stats today, just looking at it and getting angry.
Aaron Judge, best player on the planet. Don't forget it. That's episode 131 of the Compound Podcast.
231.
231.
Missed
100 more episodes.
Missed 100 of them.
Sorry. 231 of the Compound Podcast presented by Parse Rum. Go to Benny's, get your Parse. It's the perfect time of year. Maybe give it as a gift. Maybe a little holiday gift, Parse Rum. We will see you next week.